All right, today we're diving into a hidden world, a world that's actually a lot closer than you might think. We're talking about a surprisingly common organism, one that has a relationship with us that, well, most of us would rather not think about.
Okay, look at this number. 500 to 700 million. That is huge. To put that in perspective, that's about the entire population of Europe. So what on earth could this be? It's not the latest viral app, I'll tell you that. No, this is the estimated number of people right now who are hosting a tiny, uninvited guest inside their own bodies.
And here it is. This is our culprit. The official name is Trichuris trichiura, but you'd know it as the human whipworm. It's a parasitic roundworm, and it loves to set up shop in our large intestine. The infection it causes? That's called trichuriasis. So for the next few minutes, get ready, because this tiny worm is going to be the star of our show.
Okay, so first things first, let's meet the whipworm. If we're going to understand the kind of trouble it can cause, we've got to get up close and personal with our microscopic antagonist here.
So, why the name whipworm? Well, it's pretty literal. It's got this unique shape, right? A long, thin front end and then a thicker back end, just like a tiny whip. And you can even tell the males and females apart pretty easily. The female is the bigger one, and the male has this really distinctive coiled tail. But here's the crazy part. That thin, whip-like front end, that's what it uses to literally sew itself right into the lining of our intestines. Wild, right?
And it's not just the worm itself that's unique. Check out its eggs. They've got this super distinctive lemon or football shape, see? With these little plugs on either end. Now, this isn't just some weird trivia. This shape is absolutely crucial. It's the #1 clue that doctors look for when they're trying to figure out if someone has an infection.
So the big question is, how does this thing even get inside us? Well, its life cycle is more than just some dry biological process. You should really think of it as an incredible, highly strategic journey, all the way from the soil straight into the human gut.
Okay, let's trace this parasite's journey step by step. It all starts with step 1, ingestion. Basically, someone accidentally swallows eggs that were hanging out in contaminated soil. Then, step 2, the larva hatches out of its shell inside the small intestine. For step 3, this little adolescent worm travels down to the cecum. That's right at the beginning of your large intestine, and it embeds its head right into the lining. Now, step 4 is where things get, well, pretty intense. A single adult female can produce anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 eggs every single day. Step 5, these unfertilized eggs get passed out in the host's poop, and that leads to the final step, step 6. The eggs chill out in moist soil for a couple of weeks until they mature and become infective, and the whole crazy cycle is ready to start all over again.
In this timeline, wow, it really shows you just how efficient this parasite is. The larva develops in just 3 to 10 days. It can become a full-blown egg-laying adult in as little as a month. But the part that really gets me, the truly staggering part, is how long they live. A single worm can live inside of you for up to 6 years, just continuously laying thousands and thousands of eggs.
So, you've got these worms living for years, producing thousands of eggs a day. You have to wonder, what's the actual impact of all this? What happens when the whipworm finally makes its presence felt?
Right. This is the question we've all been waiting for. What actually happens when you get infected? Why should we even care about this tiny organism?
Well, it turns out the answer depends entirely on something called the worm burden. That's just a way of saying how many worms are we talking about. If it's a light infection, say less than 10 worms, you might not feel a thing. You could go your whole life and never even know they're there. But a heavy infection, that's a completely different story. We're talking chronic, bloody diarrhea, serious abdominal pain, malnutrition, and anemia. And in the most severe cases, especially with kids, the strain can be so bad that it can cause a condition called rectal prolapse, where part of the intestine actually comes out. It's really serious. The bottom line is, the impact is directly tied to the numbers.
Okay, so we've seen the problem, and it can be pretty nasty. So let's talk about the solution. How do we find this thing, and how do we fight it? This is where modern medicine really steps up.
And here's the really good news. Both finding it and fighting it are surprisingly straightforward. Remember those unique lemon-shaped eggs we talked about? Well, diagnosis is literally as simple as a lab tech spotting those eggs in a stool sample under a microscope. That's it. And the treatment? It's just a 3-day course of a super common anti-parasite drug called mebendazole. It works great for both adults and kids.
So yeah, a heavy infection can be devastating, but the parasite itself is one we definitely, absolutely know how to beat.
But you know what they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Beating the infection is great, but not getting it in the first place is way better. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, the ultimate defense. How do we stop the whipworm's journey before it even starts?
And the answer? The ultimate defense is summed up perfectly by this quote. Improved hygiene and sanitary eating habits are most effective in control. That's it. It's not some fancy, high-tech vaccine or a complicated surgery. The single most powerful weapon we have against the whipworm is basic sanitation.
And there's a really good reason why sanitation is so effective. See, the whipworm egg isn't some indestructible supervillain. It's actually pretty fragile. It absolutely needs moist soil to mature. If it dries out, it dies. If it gets too hot, over 52 degrees Celsius, it dies. Too cold, below -9 Celsius, it dies. It's way less tough than other parasite eggs, so just by doing basic things like managing waste properly and making sure our food and water are clean, we exploit all these weaknesses and we can break its life cycle completely.
And all of this leaves us with one last, really big question. We've just learned that this is a huge global health problem that's totally preventable with basic sanitation and totally treatable with simple, cheap medicine. So if simple hygiene is the cure, what does the fact that hundreds of millions of people are still infected, what does that tell us about global health inequality?